Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. And today's topic is the big con that is IPSOS polls for the SNP. Now, there's been a lot of news recently about the amount of money that the Scottish Government has given IPSOS over the last 12 months. But there's some other facts that I want to share with you that I've found just by looking a wee bit deeper into what IPSOS do, who they are, who represents them, and that sort of stuff. So, the first thing is, I think it was the Daily Express ran a story the other day, and I didn't believe it. I didn't read the Daily Express, but people had put it onto Twitter and suggested that the Scottish Government had given this polling company £5 million over the last 12 months, and I totally ignored the story, because me, as a guy who evidently, if you've watched 5 minutes of any of my videos, I evidently despise the SNP. So if there's any negative news, someone like me is going to jump onto that. But I just thought this was so ridiculous, it was a bit of a urban myth. So I'm about 24, 48 hours late onto this story because I totally ignored it, because I just thought it was such a ridiculous claim it could not be true. However, it is true. The figures show that in the year 2023, through all the different Scottish Government departments, for invoices over £25,000, we had indeed given £4.9 million to IPSOS Scotland to carry out different polls for different departments within the Scottish Government. Now, the figure, the £4.9 million, that does not include any invoices under £25,000. Now, there's a lot of invoices at £26,000, £27,000, £28,000. So I would imagine there would be equally as many, just below the £25,000 mark. So it's only 25,000 plus that are made public. So the true figure will probably be over £5 million. And it's absolutely ridiculous. Now, IPSOS have long had a sort of, leaning towards SNP. When their figures come out, they tend to be in the highest numbers towards, making the SNP appear more popular than other polls. They have a history of doing this. However, on the most recent poll, now this is the recent poll that everybody's jumping on that's a cult member and saying that SNP are going to get 40 seats at Westminster if there was an election today, and 53% for independence. 53% of the country right now want independence. Now, when you compare these figures to other polls and recent polls, similar size of interviewees done in these polls, they're a lot higher, because other polls suggest that if Labour and SNP were to compete in a Westminster election just now, they would come out with about mid-20 seats each. And that's where most other polls, if not all other pollsters, have got those figures right now. But IPSOS have got 40 seats at Westminster for the SNP. So you can see why there's such a big difference. And the other sort of more common accepted figures for independence is it's just below 50%. And that's where majority of polls have been for, the last 12, 18 months. But IPSOS show it at 53%. Quite a difference. Now, when you read headlines and when you see these graphs and things that people brandish about, particularly social media, you could fall into the trap of taking that to the bank as gospel. However, my wee inquisitive mind doesn't do that. My wee inquisitive mind digs and looks more into the information available. Now, on IPSOS website, where these figures are put out, at the bottom of all this sort of scary figures, there's almost disclaimers from IPSOS. And in this one, it tells you that these figures are based on the likelihood of how you vote at a Westminster election, and it's got SNP and Labour are not actually that far apart. The SNP have got obviously a lead there on their poll findings. It's not until you put that into other calculators to work out how that would actually affect seats. But when you look at the bottom where the disclaimers are, it tells you polls are not accurate. And in this poll, there is a 9 out of 10 chance that there is at least a 4% swing in the points given to each party. Now, if you were to apply that swing in a negative manner to the SNP and a positive manner to Labour, guess what? You come back to the figures that almost every other polling company out there have produced. So this gives pollsters a wee bit of leeway by putting these disclaimers in. And it's not something that the BBC or Sky News talk about. They just give you figures. And to be fair, it was news to me as well, because my wee inquisitive mind over the last 24 hours has been having a wee rummage about. So IPSOS tell you that there is a gap of 7 points between SNP over Labour. However, they've got a 90% chance of that being wrong, and the figures could be 4 points out either way for either party, which brings a 7-point lead for one down to a 1-point loss for that one. And then the figures make sense, because then and only then do they come into some correlation with the accepted polls for all the other pollsters. So it's do I get that polls are just a guess. I totally understand that. But when you've got a company who, two things. First thing, the Scottish Government give them £5 million in the last 12 months, and the managing director for Scotland has been taken to the press for several years telling everybody how wonderful the SNP are. And that is an opinion pieces that newspapers sometimes ask guests on to write about. Not quoting facts, not quoting figures. This lady, Emily Gray, who's the managing director of IPSOS Scotland, she's long been writing opinion pieces in papers, which the SNP's own PR machine would be proud of. Now, let me just give you a glimpse of some of the stuff that's been produced over the last few years. Back on the 7th of January 2020, on IPSOS's own website, she declared that she didn't think the UK would exist in 5 years. That was 4 years ago. And to the 2nd of October 2020, in the Times, she claimed in an opinion piece in the Times that the leaders of UK's biggest businesses were very relaxed about Scottish independence ramifications. Now, I don't know how you can come out and say that, because up towards the run-up to the independence referendum in 2014, any major UK, or any of the UK's biggest businesses, any of their leaders, were saying the complete opposite. But Emily Gray, the managing director of IPSOS Scotland, was telling the public in October 2020 that the leaders of UK's biggest businesses were so relaxed. Now, the most incredible piece that I've noted from Emily Gray, the managing director of IPSOS, was on the 29th of December 2022. This is only a year ago. This was in the Herald. She was writing an opinion piece for the Herald, and in that opinion piece, she wrote, after 15 years, the SNP juggernaut is remarkable. I would suggest that this lady is a bit of a fad for the SNP. I can't find any of her writings in any opinion pieces or interviews or anything that she's put out in the press where she's shown anything but praise for the SNP. This is a managing director of an opinion poll company who have received £5 million off the Scottish Government in the last 12 months. Now, another strange thing that I stumbled upon when I was doing my research on Emily Gray. When she was promoted, Barry Duffy, who is described the managing director for IPSOS, I would imagine that's the managing director for IPSOS UK. Emily Gray worked in London for them prior to her promotion, and she then came up to be the Scottish managing director. And in their press release, which is still on their website, she described Emily Gray as one of having strong client focus. Now, that means you look after your punters. I've been in sales I was in sales for 25 years. From the bottom of the rung right up to sales director jobs. And anybody described as strong client focus in that language of sales and marketing is somebody that looks after their punters. I would suggest to you that a £5 million account from Scottish Government would in fact be quite a big client for this lady who's a managing director who has strong client focus. Not my words, the words of the managing director that promoted her into a role. So, when you put it all together, what do you get? I just think it's just another arm of the SNP juggernaut, as Miss Emily Gray, I'm saying Miss, I don't know her title, Emily Gray seems to provide. So, her business, for this strong, client-focused individual, she's now the managing director, doesn't go any higher in the Scottish department of them. They've got £5 million a year coming in for the Scottish Government. They've got a history of telling us on any opinion polls, as an individual, by the way, yourself, not the company, telling us how wonderful the Scottish National Party are. And surprisingly, their polls come out normally on the side of the SNP and by some considerable way, going by recent polls. So, what I would suggest people do, anytime you see an IPSOS poll being touted by the cult as, here we go, we're getting 40 seats at Westminster and independence is inevitable because it's at 53% for just now. Copy and paste this video and send it to the person that's saying this nonsense, because that's all it is. If you paid my business £5 million, I'd struggle to say anything bad about you. Thanks very much for watching. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Recommendations will be in the corner. Join the chat in the comments or subscribe if you haven't already. But most important of all, have a great day. Cheery bye now.